the Taliban government that came to power in 2021 has been at pains to tell us that they are not engaged in any terrorist activity, although there are a number of internationally proscribed terrorist groups that they seem to host, but they have repeatedly assured us that they will not permit any of these to undertake any adverse actions in India. So there is a difference, ideologically speaking, with the Taliban that is now there as compared to the Taliban that was earlier there, which was completely dependent on Pakistan. Today's Taliban is not that dependent on Pakistan.
Hello and welcome to the gist for StratNews Global. This is Nayanima Basu. I have with me Ambassador Rakesh Sood. He was India's ambassador to Afghanistan, Nepal, and France. He's known Afghanistan inside out. He's been watching the developments closely, not just after the Taliban takeover in 2021, but even before. We are going to understand from him what it means with the visit of Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi and what it really means when it comes to the future of India-Afghanistan relationship and why is India actually engaging the Taliban. Welcome to the GIST, Ambassador. Thank you for so much for giving us your time.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. So, quickly understand from you what everybody is asking. Why now? Why, after 4 years since the takeover, do you think India is engaging the Taliban? We are hearing several voices that this isn't recognition, so to say, as what Russia has done, but this may be a first step towards that. Your assessment on that, please.
I think you're right that this is a step forward, but I think there were signs of this happening right from the beginning of this year. I think initially we closed our embassy because we had not established any contacts with the Taliban. In fact, they had reached out to us. The Taliban established their international office in Doha in 2013. And since that time, various countries like United States, like Russia, Germany, Norway, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, all of them started engaging with the Taliban office because Mullah brother was there for most of the time, and he is one of the best known faces of the Taliban, even today in government. But somehow we decided to not engage with them, and which is why when the Taliban takeover happened in 2021, we felt insecure and obviously had to close down the embassy within 48 hours and evacuate all the Indians from there. However, I'm glad that people started thinking a little more pragmatically. And after a year or so, we then opened a technical mission. We did not send an ambassador, but we had a technical mission because we continued to provide humanitarian assistance. You know, Afghanistan is a poor country and is even poorer today than what it was 5 years ago because of the sanctions and a freeze on international assistance. As a result, every time there is either a flood or an earthquake or any such natural disaster, it causes a lot of suffering to the ordinary people. And we continued our humanitarian assistance, and then gradually we felt that we needed to coordinate that better with the local authorities. So hence the technical mission. But at the beginning of this year, we saw the foreign secretary meeting with the foreign minister Muttaqi in Dubai. Then we saw a telephone conversation a couple of months later between External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and Foreign Minister Muttaqi, followed by a second I mean, the second telephone conversation was more to convey our condolences after a lot of lives were lost in an earthquake. But so it is something that has been in the making. And then I think we decided that, okay, we will now entertain him in Delhi. And the fact that we are having a full-fledged, we are treating it like a foreign minister's visit, is certainly a step up from what it was. However, whether this will lead to recognition, whether this will lead to sending an ambassador, whether this will lead to a full normalization, I think that is a bit difficult to say, because I think there are enough things to talk about. We have a very skeletal staff right now in Kabul, and it would be interesting to get Mr. Muttaqi's assessment about both the domestic situation, the law and order situation, the security environment, the regional thing. Even just yesterday, we saw that there had been on the border with Pakistan, there was a massive incident in which 11 Pakistani soldiers, including two officers, a major and a colonel, were killed. So obviously, there are a lot of regional developments which are of concern, interest to us, and we would like to get that assessment. And I think this is more a sign of pragmatism in terms of our foreign policy. I just wish that we had been equally pragmatic when, earlier, instead of taking a somewhat ideological view on it.
Right. Interesting you said that, sir. And since you've been watching this, India-Afghanistan relationship very closely, if I can understand, and for the benefit of our viewers, in the sense that when the Taliban was in power last time, at that time also we did not engage with them in 1996, and now that it is kind of unprecedented what is happening. So, what do you really think has changed? Of course, the Afghanistan-Pakistan dynamics, but that has always been there. So, what has really changed, you think, that today India is taking this step?
Oh, there is a lot that is very different. The first time, you're right, but I would not use the word also. The
Okay.
first time the Taliban came to power, we certainly did not engage with them, because the Taliban also took a hostile attitude towards us.
Mhm.
And we saw that. And at the same time, the Taliban did not have full control over their country. There was the Northern Alliance, which continued to resist the
Right.
takeover by the Taliban across the entire country. And although they were getting squeezed, there is no doubt about it. They were getting squeezed, but the Northern Alliance kept up a fight. And at that time, the Taliban came in backed by the Pakistani military. In 1996, the Taliban was backed by the Pakistani military. And so there was a lot of difference. And I would suggest that we, along with Russia, along with Iran, were providing active assistance to the Northern Alliance that was resisting the Taliban.
Yes.
So the relationship with the Taliban was quite different. The Taliban were also, let's not forget, there was in December of 1999, there was the IC-814 hijacking, which ended up in Kandahar, where
Correct.
we then had to send a rescue team led by Foreign Minister Jaswant Singh, in which three terrorists were released, including Masood Azhar, who then went on to set up Jaish-e-Mohammed.
Right.
So, and this was all with the support of the then Taliban government. However, the Taliban government that came to power in 2021 has been at pains to tell us that they are not engaged in any terrorist activity, although there are a number of internationally proscribed terrorist groups that are that they seem to host, but they
Mhm.
have repeatedly assured us that they will not permit any of these to undertake any adverse actions in India. So there is a difference, ideologically speaking, with the Taliban that is now there as compared to the Taliban that was earlier there, which was completely dependent on Pakistan. Today's Taliban is not that dependent on Pakistan. In
All
fact,
right.
they have a fairly hostile relationship with Pakistan, as I mentioned earlier.
Right. And so, do you think that is also one of the major factors why we are engaging with Afghanistan? And also, interestingly, The telephonic conversation that happened between Dr. Jaishankar and Foreign Minister Muttaqi also was, I mean, it happened in the backdrop of Operation Sindoor. So do you think that has been de-cementing?
I would rather that Indian foreign policy not act in such a reactive kind of a mode. I would rather that we look at national interests. After all, Afghanistan is a country which is uh, very much part of our neighborhood. It is a member of SARC. We have had close ties with Afghanistan historically. Before 1947, before Pakistan was created, we shared a border with Afghanistan, and we have had close links with Afghanistan culturally, historically, and socially. So, in that sense, and then before the Taliban came in 2021, we were actively closely engaged. We had four consulates in Afghanistan. We had the embassy in Kabul, and we had a large number of assistance projects. We had a large number of Afghan students who were studying here on scholarships, and some were even private paying students. And all of this came to an end because we just took ideological issue that we are not going to talk to the Taliban. At that time, the policy of the government was that, oh, there is no distinction between good Taliban and bad Taliban. So I'm very glad that a degree of pragmatism has dawned upon the government finally, so that
Good.
we are looking at it more, not just in terms of, oh, they have bad relations with Pakistan, so therefore we reach out to them. I think if we start acting so reactively, then tomorrow, let's say they improve their relations with Pakistan, so then that means we shouldn't talk to them. No, not at all. They are part of the neighborhood. They are an important country. They have a bearing on the region bilaterally and so on. And so, therefore, we should remain engaged. We can always calibrate the level of engagement, and that is what we should do. That is what diplomacy is.
Good that you said that, sir, and thank you for being one of those rare voices to be, saying that honestly. And of course, the point that you talked about, the fact that we had four consulates there, which was, those consulates were like our eyes and ears on the ground, be it in Kandahar, Jalalabad, Herat, so and Mazar-e-Sharif, of course. Do you think now with this visit, apart from resumption of visas, which has started trickling in, and of course more people to people linkages, we need to also look at, probably slowly and gradually, I would not know, to open up those consulates as well, and that will give us a more holding on the ground.
I think that is very premature at this stage. First, we need to develop our own understanding of what is the security situation. So, this will
Mhm.
certainly enable us to develop a better understanding by listening to what Foreign Minister Muttaqi has to say.
Mhm.
And opening consulates will only happen when we decide, because there was a time when there were a large number of direct flights between Delhi and Kabul, and there
Mhm.
were a lot of Delhi was the preferred destination for most people who needed medical treatment. There were hundreds and hundreds of patients who used to come in with their family members to undertake to get medical treatment in hospitals in Delhi. And in fact, as you probably know, that since you've been to Kabul, that around these hospitals there are little Afghanistans that have been set up, where the Afghan families would come, and guest houses are there where they would stay. And there are people who've set up little dhabas which would give them the Afghan breads, the naans, and the food, and all of that. And so they were very much at home, and they did not feel. But then we stopped all this. We ended all the visas. We cut down. We brought the visa issues to zero, to nil. It is only now, after 4 years, that we've resumed it, and that too, it is a trickle. So let's see before we come to consulates, but at least we are showing a degree of pragmatism in foreign policy, which is essential, because foreign policy should not be based, according to me, on ideology, and not it should not become a matter of domestic policy, because then it becomes ideological, and then that's how we lost 4 years.
Hmm. So then, having known and understanding of that region that you have, what do you think Foreign Minister Muttaqi could be talking with his Indian counterpart? We are still not sure whether he'll call on Prime Minister Modi or not. But since this is going to be a historic visit, what do you think could be his kind of statements? We heard what he said in the Russian format of talks, but in India, what do you think could be his immediate expectations?
Well, first, he will assure India that, look, the Taliban government in Kabul, in Afghanistan, is fully in control. Now, we have to judge that statement. Second, he will try to explain that they have the best of intentions towards India, and that they would like to have closer ties with India. Third, he would like to ask for a regular issue, resumption of regular issue of visas, and if
Mhm.
possible, direct flights. Fourth, he will ask for resumption of aid projects, which are now at a standstill because all
Yes,
we are providing is humanitarian assistance.
correct.
And then, of course, he will ask for diplomatic recognition, which, as you said earlier, Russia is the only country that has provided that. Now, I mean, I don't have access to his talking points, but but I think that these are 5 or 6 points that he would like to make in his discussions with External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, and if he gets an opportunity to call on Prime Minister Modi.
Hmm. But then, sir, what about the Haqqani network? That was also India's initial concerns when the embassy sort of shut down in 2021. The fact that how the Haqqani network posed a threat. Do you think what could be the conversation on that regard? Also considering that Sirajuddin Haqqani has a lot of influence and say in some of the decision making that the Taliban government is taking there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the Haqqani network was implicated in the attack on the Indian embassy in Kabul in 2008 and a number of other attacks uh, on Indian projects and the ITBP team, for example, and so on. So, and the Haqqani network and Sirajuddin Haqqani is a member of the Taliban government.
Yes.
So, in that sense, how does that relate to what the current situation is? Now, at the heart of it, the Haqqanis are also, at that point, as I mentioned earlier, in the previous incarnation, the Taliban in the 1990s were highly dependent on
Pakistan.
on Pakistan, and so there was hostility. Now, after 2001, when the Taliban left Afghanistan and went back to, were there in Pakistan and enjoying Pakistani asylum without Pakistan actually admitting to it, they were still under the thumb of Pakistan. So I guess they were carrying out some of these attacks on Indian interests at Pakistani behest. There are no two ways about it. Today, they are in their own country, and therefore they have a different approach. Is it really different? How far is it different? How much can ISI or Pakistani agencies influence them? I mean, these are things which are to which there are no clear cut short term answers. I mean, we have to obviously uh, deal with it very carefully, and
Mhm.
then we will. I mean, I don't know how we will respond, but I mean, you asked me a question about what Foreign Minister Muttaqi could perhaps raise with us. Now, how we respond, I think, will be a very step by step and a cautious approach.
Mhm. Sir, and my last question to you, of course, I mean, in the sense it can be anyone's guess, but since you talked about the defense and security aspect, what do you think India can really talk about now that these two sides will sit face to face? What do you think India can really seek apart from security and other things? But what is it you think will be the biggest takeaway that India can really broach with the Taliban government?
Well, we will want to know exactly how they look at their own territory, their own territorial integrity. What are their relationships with Pakistan? What are their relationships with Iran? What are their relationships with the Central Asian countries? And we would like to hear from him firsthand and have a better appreciation of how they see their role. Now, it is quite clear that their relationship with Pakistan has undergone a sea change in, let us say, the pre 2021 phase
Mhm.
to what it is today. But we also have interests with Iran. We also have interests with Central Asian countries. And so we would like to take an overall assessment, which we'll have to make for ourselves. We'll also, I'm sure, discuss it with the Russians at some point.
Mhm.
Although the Russians are clearly ahead of us in terms of their engagement with the Taliban.
Mhm. Well, interesting, sir. Well, it remains to be seen where it goes from now, and the fact that Russia, China, we all, in these countries, there are ambassadors. Probably will first step. I think we'll see appointment of ambassadors, so to say. Right? Do you also see that as an immediate outcome?
I don't see that as an immediate outcome. Maybe
Okay.
if we already have some inputs to that effect, I do not know, but I don't think anything will happen in a hurry. Much will depend. We'll have to, as I said, we'll have to be careful because, after all, once again, this we should not be reactive. It's not suddenly that, oh, because they have spoilt their relationship with Pakistan, so let's rush and send in an ambassador. Let's rush and send in a defense attaché. Let's open our consulate. That's hardly the way, because then tomorrow, if they make up, then you'll again be scrambling, which is what happened. We should have a long term, pragmatic view of foreign policy, looking at our own national interests.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. That was wonderful talking to you. So that was Ambassador Rakesh Sood telling us about the fact that how the unprecedented visit of Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi of Afghanistan can really lead to some kind of a paving of the way, but it is also important to assess the defense and security aspect. But we would need to probably also understand that Afghanistan is our neighbor and we need to have the relationship with them. Thank you for watching The Gist for StratNews Global. This is Nayanima Basu.